Hi everybody, welcome to All Games New and Old. I am David Rodriguez, and today we're going to be reviewing Dwellings of Eldervale. This monstrously huge fantasy game was published in 2020 by Breaking Games, and it's designed by Laurie. Because it is a high fantasy game, we're going to have our fantasy expert tell you all about it, so I'm going to send it over to Grungar. Take it away, Grungar. You're not Grungar, who are you?
I'm Mark Perk, the Dark Perk of the Orc Lord, and this is my friend Smoosh. Ragnar asked me to cover for him while he took a nap.
Wow, that is one Swedish chef of a name. I don't suppose you played Dwellings of Eldervale, did you?
You're an idiot, but yes, I did play it. You pick a fantasy faction in a fantasy world, and you spun out across the map, building homes, fighting off the other factions trying to do the same thing.
That's great.
Anyway, Ragnar told me to make a 0 to 5 orc rating system and give this game a score.
Wonderful. Well, there are no orcs in this game, so go ahead and give it a 0.
Nope, it gets a 5, because orcs aren't a game and shouldn't be played with.
Noted. Well, thanks for covering for Grungar. Bork, 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 bork.
You're an idiot.
Let's go to our gameplay overview. Alright, I hope that interview is at least somewhat informative for you. Let's talk about an overview of this game. So, at its most basic, it is a worker placement game. You're going to be putting people out onto various spaces on a modular board, and that's going to let you do things. Most of the spaces will give you a treasure token that you can put back in your tray to be cashed in later or immediately if you like, or to be put on something in your tableau to get yourself rewards later. There are also spaces that are in every game that'll let you summon new recruits. They'll let you turn certain components into gold. Gold is sort of like a wild component for you, so that's always really nice. There's one that'll let you get magic cards. There is
recruit and dwelling.
So there's a few that are there every game, and that sounds like a pretty typical worker placement game. But there's a lot more than that, because I mentioned spell cards. You can get spell cards. They have spells you can cast at people, but in addition, they have sort of quests or missions that you could try to accomplish mid-game, and as soon as you accomplish them, you can play those down and get whatever victory points that gives you. There are also end-of-game point things, so if you've done, this or that thing, it'll give you more points for that. In addition to that, as you build your dwellings, because when you put your workers out, you can, if you have the right resources, build a dwelling in a spot. That will give you some power in the elemental magic tracker that matches the space you built on. So if you built on a red space, you're going to go up a point or a space in the red magic track.
Yeah, and actually some spaces you can go up to.
Yeah, some do too. So they're pretty awesome. They usually cost a little more to put your dwelling there, but usually pretty worth it. You can also go into a dungeon and get adventure cards that you can put into your tableau, and those also will be associated with a certain element of magic, and if you get those, you can go up on the magic track then as well. So there's all that going on. That magic track also helps you score at the end of the game. So if you have your marker on the 4-point space in the red magic tracker, and you have a house built on a red space, you'll get 4 points at the end of the game. You'll also get 4 points if you have any red cards in your tableau. So there's all kinds of weird things that'll multiply and feed off each other to give you points later on down the road.
Yeah, and if you're the first one to get to the top, to the top 5 spot, you get an orb. So for the orbs, there's an orb reward track at the top that you can put your orb on. But also on some of the tableau cards, they have a special ability if you put your orb on that card. And so then when you're pulling your workers back and you put them on that tableau card, you get an extra bonus because you have the orb on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And another way this particular worker placement game is different than others is you basically have 2 actions, or you can do 1 or 2 actions on your turn. You can either put a worker out, or you can pull all your workers back in. So you could put one out and then pull that one back the next turn if you wanted to, or you could pull out all your workers and pull them back in, or anytime in between you can do that. And when you bring them back, you can put them on certain cards in your tableau and get a reward based on whatever that card says. So in a way, you're putting out your workers as a worker placement, but then when you bring them back, it's like a whole different worker placement spot that you may have created for yourself, which is another reason why you want to have a lot of choices down there, so you don't have workers coming back and they have nowhere to go. In addition to all those things, you can, of course, as you might imagine, get in fights with each other, which is kind of actually pretty cool, because even if you're not into like high conflict games because you're worried they might make you feel bad, even if you go in and you're like one little measly peon against hordes of stuff, you might do okay. If you roll a 6 and none of the other people do, you still won because you rolled the highest number of die.
You also have swords, and so that one little person can trade in some swords to get some additional dice too.
Yeah.
And then if you lose the battle, you go to the underworld and you get a sword when you go there. So even if you do lose the battle, it's not like you're losing that worker for the rest of the game. It just, when you're pulling your workers back, you don't get to place the workers that went to the underworld onto any of the tableau cards.
Yeah. And another thing that can help you out in a battle is if you have a dwelling in an adjacent spot, you get an extra die for that. And if you have someone in your faction in an adjacent spot, they can kind of charge in and help you with the battle if you want them to. So there's a lot going on there. There's also really big monsters all over the battlefield, or there could be all over the battlefield if you don't stop them in time, and they'll charge right into you if you land into a space adjacent to them. And so then you'll have to fight them. They can usually be pretty tough, but they're certainly not unbeatable. They usually have 4 or 5 dice that they're going to throw in a battle, and your maximum is 6. So, and like I said, you might throw 1 and just get really lucky. Could certainly happen. And those monsters, a lot of times when they're on the battlefield, will have a positive effect on the battlefield as well. It might let you do things that you usually can't do. So it's kind of a debate whether or not you want to try to take them down and get a little reward for it, or if you want to let them storm around and make use of some of the abilities that they, or effects they have on the land. So that's kind of the basic overview. There's a lot to this game, so it's kind of hard to touch on everything, but hopefully that give you like somewhat of an idea of how this might be different than some other worker placement games.
I really enjoyed the artwork in this game. I think they did a really great job of doing a fantasy-themed art and making all the different fashions look different. Each element has 2 fashions, one on each side of the board. But even on that, they using the same elements, each fashion still looks a little different and a little unique.
Yeah, I think they did a really fantastic job. I think the different factions are really... You really get a good sense of what they're about just from their pictures. I mean, there's not a lot of like backstory or fiction in this game, but you get a good sense of them, and I really like that. And I think the board really does look pretty with all like the cool, like, you know, swirling clouds and whatever else, whirlpools, all sorts of stuff is on there. It's really neat. The art on the cards, also really fantastic. I mean, I feel like I could just like rave about this art all day because I really love it. It's one of the first things that really drew me to the game was the really pretty art. So I'm pretty excited every time I have to look at it, and every time I'm picking a faction, I'm like, oh, these ones look cool. Oh, but these ones look cool, and oh, those ones look cool in a different way. And so yeah, the art I think is top notch. So as far as components, I don't think there's too many games that have a higher production value than this. I mean, we have the big Legendary Edition, but even if you just got the basic one with the standees instead of the monster miniatures, and the cardboard tokens for the various components you can gather, it's still amazing. It comes with these really cool trays for each different player color, and that's great because everything you need to start the game is right there. You don't have to go digging through and finding a bunch of components.
Yeah, if like organizing is a big thing for you with games, you'll really like the trays in this game. They made it really easy to keep it organized. Yep.
And I've got quite a few games that have miniatures, and you're like, and you think, oh, this will be easy to put back in, and it's just not, because it's just not. This one really is. I think they really designed it well, and there's a thing on the back in case you forget how everything goes. I should say on the back of the instruction manual, in case you forget how everything goes in there. It fits fine. It's really great. I know it's kind of a minor thing, but it is pretty dang cool. The miniatures, if you do get the Legendary Edition, they're pretty nice. Like, they're not the most high quality thing ever, but they're cool, very unique looking. The monster bases sound like someone screaming through an old radio for the most part. Screaming differently, for sure.
Yeah, there's slight differences, but there's not. very minor differences to them. I think the models are pretty decent. Some of the sculpts are, I think, a little weird, but I think that's just a artistic style that they went with that on some of them are a little weird to me. Mainly the Kraken,
real weird.
it doesn't really seem like it's not what I would think of when I think of a Kraken, so.
It kind of looks like he might be related to Ursula from The
Yeah.
Little Mermaid. He's got the octopus lower body, but then a fairly human upper body. But then his head is tilted way back and shoved down into his shoulders. I thought his head was cut off or something, but it's just
kind of remind me of the shrunken head guys from Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
And
it's just weird.
Yeah.
And the point probably is for it to be really weird and creepy. It's kind of fine, but I'm just that's a different one. But some of them look really neat, I think. The wooden tokens, if you have those for the various components, like the gems and the tools and whatnot, those are really neat. They had the possibility to get some that had the art for those printed on those. I didn't get those though. But even without that, the tokens are pretty damn good, and they feel real solid as is. And if you do have the punch out cardboard ones, I mean, those work totally fine too. I guess having the legendary one, the only thing that I would say is kind of a drawback is the treasure tokens are just the regular cardboard, and compared to everything else, man, that doesn't seem very super. But
the other thing is with having the wooden pieces for the items is the tray, the organizer tray for that. They do kind of overflow on that a little bit. So
yeah, and the biggest culprit there, and we should talk about these, is the coins. So they barely fit in that, but honestly, I don't care.
Yeah.
Those coins are amazing.
Those are really good, high quality. They're definitely made out of some kind of alloy metal, and they have an antique finish to them, antique bronze finish to them. So they're gold, but they have that brown undercoat painting on them, so the detail really pops on them.
Yeah, I don't know what all they're making available for the new printing that's coming out, but if those coins are available and you like metal coins at all, get them. They're real cool, for sure.
The one component that I kind of have a issue with a little bit is the rooftops for the dwellings, and the reason why they fit on your regular worker meeples. They're a little hard to get on. And then they're also the same color. So when you're playing the game, sometimes it's really easy to mistake a dwelling for a worker and place one of your meeples on a space that you're not supposed to be playing your meeple on.
Yeah, that definitely got me at least a few times, so it can be an issue. I will say one other thing I'm sort of concerned about is the cardboard covers for your faction that go onto the game trays. I mean, they're really just cardboard, and I worry that pulling them off and on, because they have to be tight enough to hold on there, I'm worried it's going to start to kind of fray the cardboard over time. I could see that happening. But in the meantime, they've held up pretty good so far, so I'm not super worried, but I think it's something that could conceivably happen down the road.
One thing that we had talked about before, too, is it'd be a little bit nice if they did a little bit more dramatic color difference between the air and the water. They're both shades of blue, and they're pretty close in shades of blue, so maybe doing a teal for the water or something would make it a little bit easier to differentiate between the air and water.
Yeah, because you basically have a dark blue and a light blue, and if you're just looking at the tiles, there's going to be some dark elements to the light blue, there's going to be some lighter elements to the dark blue, and so it can be easy to look at it and mistake one for the other. It does have the symbol of the element at the top, but it's not the most eye-catching thing amidst everything that's going on those tiles, for sure.
I think they did a pretty good job of incorporating the theme. It definitely feels like a fantasy game. It definitely feels like we're, exploring and fighting over these different lands. It does seem a little weird to change one of your workers into a dwelling. And then, sending workers out and pulling them back in is also a little weird. But I think overall they did a good job of incorporating the theme. I think they did a really good job of incorporating all the different elements and having the monsters feel like they're part of that element, having the different fashions feel like they're part of that element. So I think the theme with fantasy and elements is the biggest draw in, that tie-in that they did with the game.
Yeah, I agree. Everything just kind of feels right with how that works. I think they did a really good job. Like one of the monsters, like there's like one of the wind monsters, like allows all your characters to basically fly, have the flight ability, like as if they were a dragon. So it's just kind of funny. I imagine them running out, just getting blown through the air to wherever they were trying to go. But I like it. The thematic thing that you mentioned, I think it is kind of weird when you try to figure out what's going on, where you're putting your workers and then you're like, oh, wait guys, now come on back. No, come back. We're not done. Okay, now bring me some gems. Cool. All right, go back out. Build homes. Are you didn't build a home? Okay, well, whatever. Come on back. Like we're just sending them out, bring them back, sending them out, bring them back. That's got to be kind of bizarre. I feel like I'm a very indecisive leader doing this kind of thing. But that being said, it doesn't really get in the way of things too much. I do kind of wish that the land tiles looked more like actual lands that people would live on. So I'm not like, I'm building a house on top of a lava pool. That seems not up to code. Maybe. So weird stuff like that, but it doesn't really bother me too much because I get that they're just trying to make sure that it's easy at a glance to say, oh, well, that's one of the fire lands, and that's a dark land, and that's, whatever. It makes sense. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like, man, it'd be cool if they could somehow work it in where it looked like a place where you could plop a home, and maybe there's like a volcano erupting in the background, or something. I don't know. Something like that, but minor complaint as far as that goes. It's really not a big issue to me. All right, so I'm sure I mentioned a number of times before that worker placement is one of my favorite mechanics. Right up there with deck building. This game doesn't have a deck building element to it, but I do like how it handles the worker placement. I think the pulling characters back and getting more actions by doing that is pretty unique. I'm sure people will say it's been done out there somewhere, but I haven't personally seen it. And so for me, it's really pretty awesome. It's in that I am a big fantasy fan, so when I see all these cool, amazing looking factions, I am so excited to try them out and see how this one acts versus the other one. That's always fun for me, and I have trouble mentally in my head when I am a fire faction, and I'm like, should I even get water magic? That seems wrong. Or build on a water space? What am I doing? But I mean, you kind of have to sometimes. But I like it because it gets in my head enough that I'm starting to just do like, okay, what should I do based on the fact that I am this faction? And that's probably dumb because strategy goes right out of the window at that point. But I like that it immerses me as much as it does. And I'm going to peek behind the curtain. This is our second take, and I'm trying to be a little more reserved because I really kind of ranted in the previous one, but not a negative G.I. Joe deck building rant. Like, no. So, let me get this out of the way. I'm giving this a 10. I absolutely love it. It is fantastic. I'm happy to play it any old time. Every time I play it, I'm excited at all the cool things I could do. Every time I do or get a spell that I haven't had before, or use it and I couldn't before, or I get some card from the adventure deck and I'm building up my forces and doing all kinds of every bit of it. I love. It's fantastic. I love the goofy screaming monsters. They're fantastic. I love having a grudge against the goofy screaming monsters because they keep sending my guy, who should be a lot tougher than this, to the underworld. I love it. Every time there's all these cool little kind of epic stories that can happen during this game that's just based on, where you went or how your die rolls happened. And that's one of those things that I really, really enjoy in any game. And this game seems to really have it in spades. The only thing this is a nitpick for me, but some people might find it to be a bigger deal, is this game is pretty complicated, especially, teaching it is difficult. Learning it is not super easy either, because it just has enough twists to the basic worker placement mechanic that can make it a little confusing for some people, and then it has so many other little things on top of it. And to me, all these do blend really well once you get the hang of them, but it is hard to, I think worker placements in general can be hard to teach because there's all these spaces and they all do these different things. But now in addition to that, you have, and you have to worry about your magic tracker over here, and don't forget you can get these cards and bring them down here, and you can create new spaces with that, and you can cast these spells, and you can get these end of game bonuses. Like, there is a lot of stuff going on here. And it's not as complicated a worker placement game as like the Gallerist. I'm debating whether or not I even fully call that worker placement. It's a little different, but it's not like a Vita Lacerda game, if you're familiar with any of that stuff, where it's just so many systems upon systems. It's not that heavy, and it clicks together for me better than those games do. Nothing against those games. They're awesome too. But there is a lot. And if you don't want to get a barrage of rules thrown at you, or you don't want to try to figure out where to even start talking about how all these things connect, this one might not be for you. And that's the only time I can personally see where it wouldn't be for someone other than like people who hate fantasy or what have you. But that, yeah. Anyway, I don't even know. So if you don't mind a little more complicated game and you like worker placement and you like fantasy, I don't even, like, why, just get this. It's coming out with a second printing soon. I don't know what all is available, but to give you an idea of how much I like this game, I mentioned I didn't have like the cool screen printed wooden tokens. I just have the wooden tokens, which already cost more. I regret not buying the screen printed tokens. I wish I had thrown more money at these people that I didn't have to spend. It wouldn't have changed anything in the game other than those tokens would have looked a little cooler. And I wish I would have done it. But I didn't. Anyway, don't be me. If they offer these things and you have the money to do it and this game sounds good to you, get it and get any upgrade you can. You don't want to have regrets at the end of your life. You don't want to be like me and just wonder what life would have been like with those screen printed tokens. Anyway, what do you think?
I think your life would be the same. On the game.
How dare you?
I enjoy this game. It is a fun game. The things that I really like about this game is I really like the player board token area. I like how organized it is. I do like playing the game. I like the theme of the game. I really like how each element has 2 fashions that you can pick from, and each fashion plays differently. So, and even like there's 4 different types of workers, and each fashion they'll have 2 workers that have special abilities, but it's not always the same workers. So sometimes it's your basic worker, sometimes it's your warrior, sometimes it's your wizard, and sometimes it's even your dragon. And so each fashion plays differently and has a different feel to it. There's 2 monsters for each element too, so you can play, so there's a lot of versatility in this game, and you can really have a different feel from game to game, even though it's the same basic mechanics. So there's a lot to this game, and a lot of things that I normally really like with the game. To me, this game is a little bit heavier than what I would normally want to play. And that's really the main drawback for me. Like I kind of said earlier, the roofs for the dwellings, I really wish that they were a little bit different colored, like even just like washed black or something, just to help differentiate it a little bit more from your workers, because when you're just quickly looking at the board, it's really easy to mistake them for your worker, especially since they just go on top of your workers. So maybe even just different tokens or something would help. But that being said, I do really enjoy this game. I do have fun with this game. I do want to play again. It's a little bit heavier than what I would, if I'm just going to sit down and play a game, it's a little heavier than what I would normally want to pick out. So, but for me, I'm going to give it an 8, because I do still really enjoy this game.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, pretty high scores from the both of us, a 10 and an 8. Pretty amazing. I, again, fully recommend that if this sounds even a little good to you, at least get the basic edition. And if you have extra organs, you can sell those and get the upgrades. Again, you don't regrets, like I have. So, get it if you can. It's amazing. It's fantastic. And they just announced that they're working on expansions. Literally, I saw that an hour before we recorded. So, yay! More Dwellings of Eldervale. Great. I'm just going to say go get it one more time. There you go. Okay. I hope this video has been helpful to you. If it has, please give me a like and subscribe. Click the little bell icon so you can know about the next time we put out a video. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you all around the table again at All Games New and Old.
Bye.
Buy all the things. Don't regret your life's decisions like me. You don't want to be on your deathbed. You've been like, I should have gotten this screen printed components, but it's too late for me now. You know, don't do that. As you pull back workers, which I'll get to in a second. Actually, I'll get to that now. Let me back up. When you put out those workers, one of the things you can do is you can build a dwelling on the space. And why am I saying that? That's not what I'm trying to say. Ah! Wow. I'm having a gives you brain night.
Here,
Wow, you actually made it this far, huh? Well, if you like that video, I guess you can watch that one. Or, that one. If you're as big an idiot as he is, I guess you could, subscribe. Whatever. He's an idiot.